Hi, friends. Thank you so much for joining us on another day of this 30-day video devotion towards better relationships through my new book called The People Factor. Listen, I am convinced that it's time for us to do relationships better. If by chance, if you haven't picked up my new book called The People Factor, make sure that you're doing it. Drop what you're doing after this video ends. Download it on Amazon, download it on iBooks. Make sure you go to your nearest bookstore, pick it up and read it. I believe that this book is going to change your life and certainly help you to do relationships better. But on today, we've got a tremendous influencer with us. I want to introduce many of you. She really doesn't need an introduction. But for some of you, I want to introduce you to Michelle Patterson. She is the leading #1 expert on women's economy and women's economic issues. She's been featured in a number of different venues, the Huffington Post, CNBC, Fox Business, Bloomberg. She is a woman of distinction, a woman of influence, and doing tremendous things. She not only heads up the California Women's Conference, which is one of the premier conferences for women in the world. Every year they see over 8,000 tremendous influencers, and they get together, and individuals like Donna Karan and Oscar De La Hoya and so many other leading ladies, the Bushes, and just tremendous individuals have been a part of the conference that she leads. And so we're honored to have her on the call. She just recently launched a whole new website and blog called womensnetwork.com. This is really more a portal for professional women looking to grow their career and their business and just to have balance in their lives, which is important. And we were talking before this call about her new book that's coming out soon called Women Change the World. And so, Michelle, thank you so much for being with us on this Skype call.
Well, thanks for having me. And again, I've heard so many things about you and loved reading your book. I want to compliment you on just, very down to earth, insightful, easy to read. I knew when I spoke with you, it'd be like speaking to, a friend that I've known forever, just the way that you write. So beautifully done.
Thank you so much. You know what? I think that this chapter was designed for you to really weigh in on it, because we're going to talk a little bit today about chapter 8 in my book that deals with the fact that the most valuable people in your life aren't always the most visible ones. I call it the law of true value. And I think that you're really poised to speak and just add a little bit of value to this discussion, not only because you are a phenomenal individual, but because of the fact that you dedicated your life to leading women and making sure that they make the global impact that they're called to make. And this chapter really revolves around a woman like that, a woman that we rarely hear about in the Bible. But if it were not for her, one of the leading figures in the Old Testament, Moses, I don't know if we'd be talking about him a lot. And so it's interesting how when you study his life, you see his wife was really not only just the backbone. We've all heard the cliche that behind every great man is a great woman. And I think it's more beside rather than behind. But Zipporah literally intervened in such a way that saved his life and saved his purpose. And so that principle is very, very significant in the lives of many people. I've seen people blow it because they miss this point, that oftentimes the most visible people are not always the most valuable ones. A lot of times it's people behind the scenes, behind the camera, people who may not have name recognition and a lot of hype associated with them, but they are the ones that really are making things happen. And I'm sure you've seen this in the work that you've dedicated your life towards. Let's talk a little bit about that and why you think that that principle in this chapter in particularly is a valuable one.
I loved your comments about your wife. I look at, my husband and I just celebrated 17 years of marriage.
Awesome.
His dad was pastor. Wow. And I always think he's the youngest of 4. And I thank them every day because it's like, you gave me this beautiful man.
Wow.
But I know without a doubt, I would not be able to do what I do today in leading this global movement.
Right.
If it wasn't for, my best guy, Eric. And he's CPA, quiet, would rather have a root canal than get up on stage and share. But he sits back there and he's my biggest supporter, encouraging. And again, I think there's those people in our lives where, they, you don't maybe see them, all the time, that are good friends. They're quiet,
Yeah.
but it's almost like when you talk to them, it's like you talk to them, every day.
Yeah.
I mean, they're just those beautiful, beautiful friends. So I thought this chapter was really hit home for me, because again, it's making the invisible visible and recognizing that.
No, I totally agree. I think if people are going to value the right relationships, sometimes the most important thing that they can do is to make the invisible visible. Because with everything that you do with your global movement, your family's anchored and supported by your loving husband. People probably don't see him on the stages that you share with other leading people. They may not see him on Bloomberg television, that you've been on. They may not read about him in the Huffington Post when you weigh in and share your wisdom. But he's a huge part of your life, and he is a significant factor in your life. And I think the challenge for many people is making sure that we assess value with the right people.
And they're out there.
Yeah.
I mean, I go back to, my husband, Eric. I mean, I look at when I first took on, talk about a significant role. I took on a role that Maria Shriver had.
Right.
And when I went into it, I mean, faced huge obstacles. My first year, the sponsorship company that we were working with had come in, committing to $7 million in funding, and out of the total amount, they did $100,000 total. And it was 17 days before the event that all came crashing down. And I'll never forget this. And that's why, again, my husband's very, CFO, quiet, but I'll never forget this. I had, gone to bed. I didn't share with him what had happened, that I was 1.8 million in a deficit 17 days before an event that was, 150 speakers, 400 exhibit booths. I mean, it was happening. And so I'm tossing and turning in my sleep while I'm kicking him. So he wakes up and he's just like, what is going on with you? And this is when we were married 15 years, now 17, but he puts on the light and he's like, what is the problem? And I'm like, Eric, I really did it this time. I put our family in a terrible situation, and and I told him I'm 1.8 million short, and this is the situation. And this man looks at me and he says, Michelle, he goes, I've been married to you for 15 years, and I've watched you, get yourself out of like crazy situations and make things happen. He goes, go back to bed. He goes, you absolutely can do this. He goes, if anybody can do this, you can. And I think, again, those valuable people in your life, it's where do you go to find that encouragement? And I woke up the next morning and just started making calls and calling out to my network. And it was the most exhilarating, the most exciting, the most painful. Felt a lot of rejection, got a lot of encouragement. But I go back to is, that, for him, again, not center stage, doesn't want to be, but it's those individuals. Are you surrounding yourself, with those people and making having that impact in your life?
Wow, that is amazing. And I think that is a great example of why you've got to have the right people in that inner circle, and to recognize those people that are valuable, even if they're not very visible. We've been talking about my new book called The People Factor, and particularly Chapter 8, that is really about the law of true value, making sure that you understand that sometimes the people that are not as visible in your life are really the ones that are the most valuable. Michelle, thank you so much for joining us. It has been an complete honor to just spend a little bit of time talking about the book, and I am just so in awe of what you're accomplishing globally, and I wish you continued success.
Well, I can't wait to see you at the conference too. So
yes, I'm excited to be there.
Meet your wife. I can't wait to meet your wife too.
Yes, my wife is going to be there with me. It's going to be an incredible time, and I know that it's going to be enriching for both your conference attendees and for me as well. Thank you so very much. Stay tuned, guys. We got so much coming up in the very next installment of this 30-day video devotional. Take care.